with the risks that are rattling markets right now.
Well, Patrick Savanek, Jeff saw it. Guys, thank you. Very good discussion. Jeff, be safe down there in Florida. Be careful. Big storm coming.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Time for your morning RBI, the most random but interesting thing you're going to hear all day. And given the new tariffs take effect this weekend on Sunday, remember that, the additional 15%. Question is this: will the China tariffs result in manufacturing and manufacturing jobs coming back to the United States? That's what the president says he wants. What do you think? We asked you on Twitter, and the poll results were pretty clear. 74% of you said no. No, they will not. 26% said yes, they will. We know the president watches CNBC. We'll see if he agrees with that. Most of you saying, nope, tariffs, they're not going to work, bringing jobs back to America. Random, but hopefully interesting. Hey, have a great long weekend, everybody. Be safe out there. We'll see you Tuesday. Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning. An exciting end to August. Stocks set to surge again on this final trading day of the month. But with yields at record lows, should Wall Street be bracing for pain ahead? Well, stock's pretty attractive, doesn't it? The clock is ticking. New rounds of tariffs set to take effect this Sunday as tensions in Hong Kong continue to rise. We'll get live reports from there and from Beijing. And bracing for Dorian, we're getting a better idea of the storm's projected path. It's now expected to hit the Florida coast as possibly a Category 4 hurricane. It's Friday, August 30th, 2019, and Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from New York, where business never sleeps, this is Squawk Box.
Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We're live at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Melissa Lee along with Joe Kernan. Becky and Andrew are off today. Our guest host for this hour, Jim O'Sullivan, Chief U.S. Economist at High Frequency Economics. Great to have you with us ahead of the long weekend. Yep. Let's take a check on U.S. equity futures because we are looking at a higher open across the board here. This would be the third straight day of gains. The Dow looking to add 200 points almost right at the open. S&P 500 indicated higher by 22 points, and the Nasdaq looking to add about 61. Overnight in Asia, the Nikkei was a real standout in Asia. 1.2% was the gain there. Hang Seng had been higher but turned lower once the authorities started arresting some key protesters ahead of the 13th straight weekend of protests in Hong Kong. Shanghai Composite finishing the day in the red. European equities, we'll see here how it will react to Eurozone CPI. That's due today. We are higher across the board. German DAX is up by almost 1% and almost 1% gains in France as well. And as for Treasury yields, amazing to think that the 10-year yield was at a 3-year low just earlier this week at 1.443%. We're now at 1.526% with the 2-year at 1.544%. So the inversion remains intact.
And a new journal piece says that state attorneys general are taking issue with that proposed opioid deal with Purdue Pharma. The deal, if it went through, would resolve more than 2,000 lawsuits with a $12 billion settlement. Now, several states took issue with part of the plan that would link much of that settlement money with future sales of OxyContin and other Purdue drugs. Some states want the family, the Sackler family itself, to guarantee a larger cash payment up front. Others didn't like parts of the plan that calls for Purdue to claim bankruptcy and emerge as a public benefit company. The judge in the case has asked for an update today about where negotiations stand. He said he wants at least 35 states on board, although a deal can move forward without meeting that threshold.
Well, as part of its deal to buy Fox, Disney has sold its stake in the Yes Network to an investor group that includes Amazon and Sinclair Broadcast. The group acquired the 80% stake of Yes that wasn't already held by the New York Yankees. The stake was valued at about $3.5 billion. And China's version of Uber is preparing to launch a robo-taxi service. Didi Shuxing said users in Shanghai will soon be able to hail driverless cars from the app. The vehicles are designated as level 4, which means they have a high degree of autonomy, but a human backup driver can still manually take control if necessary. Didi didn't say when the pilot program would start.
And every county in Florida is under a state of emergency as we prepare for what may be the strongest hurricane to hit that state in nearly 3 decades. Meteorologist Caitlin McGrath joins us now with more. Good morning, Caitlin.
And good morning to you. We're continuing to keep an eye on Dorian, now a Category 2 storm with those sustained winds at 105 miles per hour, currently sitting about 260 miles east-northeast of the southern Bahamas. Now, Dorian will continue that northwesterly motion as we head throughout the day today, but then high pressure will build to the north of the storm, and that will push Dorian farther west towards the Florida coast as we head towards the start of next week. That being said, there is still a lot to be determined in exactly when and where we can expect landfall, if we can expect landfall. There are still a few scenarios that keep Dorian out to sea a bit longer, but you can see it will continue to push towards Florida as we head towards the long holiday weekend. The Bahamas under the gun as we head through the second half of the weekend as well. So let's talk about the latest updates and what we know new this morning. Now, hurricane watches are in effect for the northwest Bahamas as we head through the weekend. They are expecting that life-threatening storm surge and hurricane force winds both Saturday and Sunday. That rapid intensification will continue. Dorian, right now a Category 2 storm, expected to become a 4 before a possible landfall early next week. And there are still multiple scenarios in play. So what you need to know right now, if you live in Florida, the time to get a plan in place is now. That's the very latest on Hurricane Dorian. Back to you.
Caitlin, thank you. We'll be checking back. Coming up, the new developments in Hong Kong overnight as a pro-democracy activist was arrested and weekend protests were canceled. We'll take you live there after the break. We'll check the futures, which, what is this, 4 straight days? I think we'll be above where we were in the averages when the latest round of, when the latest trade war, we're once again back closing and not that far from all-time highs. There are the futures this morning. As we head to break, here's a look at the biggest pre-market winners and losers. We're talking specifically
this CNBC program.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent.
And then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent. With Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
There are certain things in life we simply don't talk about. And hemorrhoids are, right up there, so to speak. But we should, because there's 8 million people in the UK right now suffering with piles. If you're one of them like I was, you should speak to Xroid. They're the Harley Street specialists in hemorrhoid treatment. It's a new, fast, gentle, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids, with no downtime, and the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Consultation and treatment starts from $9.95. Xroid, be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
Live big and spend less on the brands you adore, and dine by the waterside. Who could want more? Lap up the savings as much as the view with Ted Baker, Hackett, Nike and Coach too. Lock Fine and Five Guys make it a date. You can shop, meet and eat every weekday till late. So sit back, unwind and let style lead the way. And give yourself a different day at Gunwharf Keys. Waterfront outlet shopping.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals on computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Welcome back to Squawk. New developments in Hong Kong in the protests overnight specifically. Let's go there live. Chris Livesay joins us now with more. Chris.
Hi there, Melissa. Yeah, I'm here in Hong Kong, a city that has been shaken by violence after protests last weekend. And now authorities here have responded by making several arrests overnight of key protest figures and by banning a very highly anticipated protest here this weekend. However, protesters remain defiant and they say they're going to turn out to the streets regardless. That raises the specter for even more conflict between police and protesters. Protesters who last weekend resorted to throwing bricks and even Molotov cocktails. That's gasoline bombs at police. Police who, for the first time, pulled out a water cannon, fired a warning shot into the air, and even pointed their weapons directly at protesters. Now, all of this is just completely unheard of in a city like Hong Kong that prides itself on stability and order. It's unheard of all across China. In fact, the last time China experienced a challenge of this nature to its authority was in 1989. Now, that's when protesters marched on Tiananmen Square. It's a rather ominous distinction for the protests taking place here in Hong Kong. In fact, now everybody here is asking, how will these protests end? Will they end in violence or will they end in peace? Melissa?
Chris, thank you. Chris Livesay with the latest in Hong Kong.
Well, it's like another good session for the stock market, at least right now. Who knows? You could see that it was last Friday, wasn't it, when it hit the fan?
Yes.
Anyway, stocks looked to push higher on this, and I don't need to go into what happened, right?
Or what hit the fan.
Yeah, or what hit the fan. The excrement hit the air conditioner, I think we're allowed to say. The last trading day of August, here are the three top performing sectors for the month of August. The only three that are set to end the month in the green: utilities, real estate, and consumer staples. The worst sectors: energy, financials, and materials. Joining us now to talk markets, Gene Goldman, CIO at Cetera. I like Cetera because Cetera makes me think of some lame Chicago song like Saturday in the Park or something. And Scott Nations, president and CIO at Nation Shares. Our guest host this morning is Jim O'Sullivan. Scott, I saw something in the notes. I'll just start with you quickly. You say, sometimes things aren't that complicated. Low interest rates are pretty good for stocks, are they not?
Low interest rates are great for stocks. High earnings, better earnings are great for stocks. And we had a really good earnings season. We had a nice quarter. Most people expected an earnings recession. We had a little bit of earnings growth. And Joe, over time, that's about 90% of the equation.
I guess if someone were to point at a problem with your thesis, they'd say, well, earnings aren't growing. There's an earnings recession because we had a couple of great years and now the comps are so hard to match.
Well, we actually had a little bit of earnings growth, not very much, but we had a little bit. The quarter ended up better than expected. The problem right now is the other 10% of the equation. It's whether it's trade or what's going on in Hong Kong or Dorian. All of that over time may wash out, but you have to get through the week.
Well, there's people, Scott, and you know who they are, that look at 2020 and they have three scenarios. This one guy in particular, one where the S&P is $185, one where the S&P is kind of flat at $165 of earnings, and one where you actually see a 10 or 15% drop to the 140s. And that could totally change where, you put the same multiple on those three numbers and you have a wide range of where the stocks could be at the end of, the S&P could be by the end of next year.
And the problem is, how much lower can rates go? We don't want to see rates that much lower because that really means that there's a problem, frankly, particularly in Europe. They're about ready to implement more easing, and that's only because things aren't going particularly well over there.
All right, Gene, you say nobody likes what's happening, but we just keep moving along. And you think the trade problems get settled more quickly than people think, and the Fed does continue to ease. Is that your view?
Yeah, I think so. So when we talk about stocks, obviously interest rates and earnings are definitely very important. What we do, though, is what's more important is the U.S. economy. We've termed the U.S. economy a cockroach economy because it won't die. Everyone hates this economy. No one believes in it. But in our opinion, it's going to muddle along for a long time. So you think about who hates it. You have bond investors. They're really pushing yields lower. They're inverting the yield curve. You look at equity investors throwing volatility much higher. Even commodity investors are throwing, doing an economically insensitive trade by buying gold and selling copper. Even the Fed, think about the Fed. They sprayed raid on this cockroach economy 9 times in the last 3 or 4 years. Now the Fed doesn't believe it's going to last, and they're going to cut rates next month. We're worried about the fact that the Fed funds is actually trading higher than the 30-year Treasury. That's something that suggests that the market wants more rate cuts than the Fed is really talking about, especially last week.
So you're kind of making the case that when things aren't that loved, that maybe they continue to, when they get too beloved, then you're getting ready to top out, and we're not there yet.
Yeah, and remember, Joe, when you and I have talked last time, we talked about being cautiously optimistic. While we love the fact that we're in the longest expansion ever, longest bull market ever, one thing we're watching is valuations are pricing in perfection, pricing in a super dovish Fed, pricing a trade war resolution, which we do believe will be resolved. But unfortunately, valuations are pricing it. So we're not bearish, we're just cautious, and we're telling our advisors and their clients to really look to, take some profits, reduce a little risk. Part of it is rebalancing back to long-term investment objectives. Think about this, a 60-40 investor coming out of the Great Recession today without rebalancing is about 83% stocks, 17% bonds. By doing nothing, you've actually increased your risk in your portfolio. You look at equity risk, we're suggesting reduce equity exposure by diversifying, looking at value. Everyone loves growth stocks, but growth is up above value by 10% this year. And then within fixed income is your safety part of a portfolio. Okay. But as yields have been so low for a long time, everyone's been jumping in high yields.
What's interesting, Gene, is that a lot of the things that you cited in terms of where we have negative yields, the rotation from industrial metals to gold, all those things point to a slowing global economy. And so, Jim, I wanted to bring you into the conversation. I mean, at some point, doesn't the U.S. economy get hit by a slowing global economy? And with tariffs due to go into effect at midnight on Sunday, shouldn't corporate profit numbers be adjusted accordingly, at least for this third quarter?
Well, I think they have already. Of course, we've gone from basically 3% growth a year ago or so to about 2% right now. And when you look at the details, exports have clearly weakened. We've been seeing flat to even slightly negative export numbers, and along with that, the manufacturing sector has been weaker. But the overall economy, while it slowed, has obviously not collapsed. And I think that's where we are. Now, going forward, I mean, we keep getting days like last Friday, of course, and if there's enough of a hit to confidence broadly and equity markets, then that could drag us down a lot lower. But, I mean, as of now, if the trade tensions remain a bit of a drag, global growth remains weaker, but it hasn't completely collapsed, then I think we could continue to get more of the same of 2% type growth, which would be consistent, I guess, with what Gene is saying there. But for sure, there are vulnerabilities here with the trade tensions and with the global numbers still being on the weak side.
Yeah. Scott, how do you assess how we enter the month of September?
Well, unfortunately, we know that volatility is, we call it lumpy. That is, the market gets volatile and it stays volatile for a while. We're certainly going to have to put up with that. I think that we do have some good news on the trade front. The spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry today said some things that sounded conciliatory, that they're going to continue to talk. Right now, that's all the market wants, is them to continue to talk.
Well, we're going to end it there. People say lumpy. I think lumpy Rutherford, but that's what happens when you get to our age, I think, Scott. You know what I mean? You go back to...
I wish we had pop-up video so that we can have, like, the definitions of the things that you're talking about, because half the time, I think people have no idea.
You've been a little bit hard on Jerry Mathers, Ward. That was a... you remember,
Leave it to Beaver.
Lumpy Rutherford, yeah.
Now I remember.
So you do remember?
Well, it's not like the tip, the forefront of my brain.
You know about
There's
that,
a lot
Jim?
of other things going on.
You didn't know about that? You should have known it. Huh?
Maybe I missed that.
Good response.
The question is, did Eddie Haskell, was he a cop or a porn star? That's the real question. Anyway, Gene... Huh?
Does one preclude the other?
No, but there were rumors that he was... And in fact, he was a policeman. He was not... anyway, I don't know whether he's happy with how he spent his life or not. How about you? Jim, you're good?
All good?
All right, thank you. You're going to be here for...
He's like, keep me out of it. When is this hour over?
It's Friday before
Scott
Labor Day.
Gene, thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming up, fallout from the trade war. We'll tell you how tariffs and the falling yuan are taking a toll on Tesla. That's next.
Alpha, the most important investor summit 9 years running. Strategy from leading alpha generators. Direct access to policymakers and government leaders. On September 19th, see who's calling the shots now. Go to deliveringalpha.com to attend this year's blockbuster event.
You will come away with ideas that you can put to work immediately.
Plus, special guest Vice President Mike Pence talks economy and trade war impact. Reserve your spot now at deliveringalpha.com.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent. With Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
There are certain things in life we simply don't talk about. And hemorrhoids are, right up there, so to speak. But we should, because there's 8 million people in the UK right now suffering with piles. If you're one of them like I was, you should speak to Xroid. They're the Harley Street specialists in hemorrhoid treatment. It's a new, fast, gentle, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids, with no downtime, and the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Consultation and treatment starts from $9.95. Xroid, be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
Live big and spend less on the brands you adore, and dine by the waterside. Who could want more? Lap up the savings as much as the view with Ted Baker, Hackett, Nike and Coach too. Lock Fine and Five Guys make it a date. You can shop, meet and eat every weekday till late. So sit back, unwind and let style lead the way. And give yourself a different day at Gunwharf Quays. Waterfront outlet shopping.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals on computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things.
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things.
I didn't choose you. You chose me. When you broke from the crowd and pawed at my knee, soon you'll be feeling right at home. You'll be a bit unsure, but you're free to roam. What's good to chew? What's nice to nibble? Wet food, dry food, tin food, kibble? You might sometimes be cheeky, not always wise, but I know I found love in those puppy dog eyes. Join the free VIP Puppy Club from Pets at Home for advice and exclusive offers, including 10% off your first shopping store. Visit petsathome.com/puppy club or join in store. T's and C's apply.
Welcome on board, ladies and gentlemen. Could the passenger in carriage 5 please unplug your extension lead and stop charging your phone, electric toothbrush, handheld hoover and power drill on the table? Thank you.
Like getting your money's worth? Enjoy the delicious mayo chicken, just 99p from the McDonald's Saver menu. Served after 10:30am, except in selected restaurants which will serve this from 11am. Price and participation may vary.
Time now for the Executive Edge, and we have three stock stories with China exposure. Tesla forced to make some big changes as China's currency continues to fall against the dollar, raising prices on some of its vehicles by more than 2%. The company currently imports all the cars it sells in China. Tesla doesn't disclose sales by country, but it's estimated that it sold more than 23,000 cars in China through July. Tesla is building its first overseas factory in Shanghai, which is due to start production later this year. The company expects to initially be able to build about 3,000 Model 3s a week.
Marvell Technology shares are down sharply. Second quarter profit and revenue topped estimates on strong sales of network equipment, but the company sees third quarter revenue falling below forecasts as the U.S. ban on selling parts to Huawei has hurt the chip maker. The company CEO said they also anticipate a worsening macroeconomic environment. Shares of semiconductor company Ambarella are surging. That's an Elton John song, too, I think. The company reported better than expected second quarter earnings. The CEO said the outlook for 2020 is strong despite geopolitical uncertainty. Coming up, more big stock. You want me to sing it?
Yes, please.
No, I'm not going to. That might be.
I called your bluff.
Ambarella. Look at that. Anyway, we got more movers to talk about. We'll tell you about cosmetics. You know what I'm talking about, right? Did you see this?
Ulta.
You see the percentage loss?
20% in the after hours yesterday.
It's hideous. If you own that, it's like you don't even want to get up today. Computers.
Still up for the year.
Huh? Yeah.
Still up for the year.
It is, okay. Computers in a discount retail. Let's about it yesterday. Right after the break, and then later, Jeff Sonnenfeld will join us to talk about President Trump's trade tactics. Really? Trump trade tactics? And the pushback from CEOs. As we head to break, here's a look at yesterday's S&P 500 winners and losers.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away!
Hey, boo!
Boo!
Executive Edge is
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
If it isn't dead, if it ever comes back, we'll come back to.
On September 6th,
It's me, the Losers Club has officially begun.
they're back, and so is he.
We didn't stop it.
The clown.
Starring James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain.
27 years, I dreamt of you.
See how it all ends.
I craved you.
It, Chapter 2.
I missed you.
In cinemas September 6th. Book tickets now, rated 15.
There are certain things in life we simply don't talk about. And hemorrhoids are, right up there, so to speak. But we should, because there's 8 million people in the UK right now suffering with piles. If you're one of them like I was, you should speak to Xroid. They're the Harley Street specialists in hemorrhoid treatment. It's a new, fast, gentle, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids, with no downtime, and the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Consultation and treatment starts from $9.95. Xroid, be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
For our half-price sale on a choice of floors and beds. For first-class free fitting, Carpet Right. For life. Offers end Tuesday. Free fitting on selected carpets and vinyl with selected underlay. Minimum spend applies.
Did you know Curry's PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals. On computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things and strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings and
cheese strings, yollies, and new
Anyway, no, I appreciate it. I think it's fun. I think it's fun. No, we all,
I like it.
Friday. It's Labor Day, right? The weekend?
Labor Day weekend, yes. Don't come to work on Monday.
Not coming to work. You know what that means? That it's a 4-day week next week. So not only do you get Monday off and a 3-day weekend, but you also only have to work 4 days.
That's how the math
That's the
works.
best. I know, but instead of a Friday off, where
you'd rather have a Monday
I'd rather
off.
have Monday. It's a better way of doing it. Good morning, U.S. You too, right? U.S. equity. Actually, you like no? I think you like working like 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day. You do. You love.
I like working 6 hours
Why else would you do it? How many are you working today?
Today?
Yeah. How many are you working today?
I'm doing 3 shows today.
Doing 3 shows today.
Yeah.
Could have said no.
No, I can't say no. Why would I say no?
I know. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're here, to be on TV. Anyway, U.S. equity futures at this hour are indicated up about 190 points after yesterday. It kept getting better and better, right? And then the day before was better. We've made up all those losses from last week, and the trade war is not settled. So figure that out. Everyone that thinks, the market is... I've had people say that the trade war has ruined the economy and ruined the market, and they point to the market. Jason Furman wrote the editorial. Look at what the market's not down. The market's basically off from its highs, what, 2%?
Yeah.
2%.
Yeah.
Ulta beauty shares are plunging after second quarter results missed forecasts. The cosmetic retailer is also cutting its profit outlook, and it warns that sales will slow this year. Ulta citing a drop in the sales of color cosmetics, which account for half of its annual sales, as shoppers spend more on skincare and other products. Okay, so that's an 82...
We've seen this trend before in the other sort of cosmetics makers, cosmetics retailers. The troubling thing is that the CEO on the conference call last night said that the trends in terms of buying cosmetics, because there aren't any big trends right now, fashion trends that is that things got worse in the past few weeks. So that's what you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear things got worse in the most recent few weeks of the quarter.
Right? Yeah.
So we're seeing that.
It's been a heck of a... now, where are they? Are they in malls, or is it different than Sephora? I mean, how do you know?
I believe that they're in malls and strip malls.
Malls and strip malls.
Yeah.
He's got nothing to add here. You got nothing on this, Sullivan? You got the Fed. How's the Fed affecting... is the yield curve affecting Ulta?
Well, the Ulta, I'm not sure about that.
I want to buy a consonant. That's what I make it ultra, because I don't know what an ultra.
Of course, we already have retail sales data through Q2, so implicitly, I guess it's in there.
There you go.
And it was pretty strong. And it was pretty strong. And this morning, we're going to get personal income and spending for July, and we're going to get a pretty strong consumer spending number for July. So despite that, the numbers on the consumer side are still pretty good.
There is some value added. Thank you, Jim. We're going to talk to you more in a second. Meanwhile, though, Dell shares are soaring. Second quarter earnings beat forecasts on higher demand for desktop computers. Companies seeing lower demand, though, across industries in China. But it offset that by focusing on higher margin deals in the country. A new journal report says activist investors are circling Groupon, pushing for a stock buyback, a strategic partnership, or a sale of the company. The report says investors and a few outside groups have been increasing their positions or aligning with major shareholders to gain influence. The company's stock's been declining since it hit an all-time high of 26 just 2 weeks after it went public way back in 2011. It's a far cry from there.
$2.57.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I don't even think can you margin that? You can't even margin a $2 stock. Okay, it's like needs to be delisted or something. I mean, I'm not recommending that.
I mean, it's getting closer by the day.
Yeah, it is, right.
Coming up, $300 billion worth of Chinese imports are set to go into tariffs on $300 billion of Chinese imports set to go into effect on Sunday. We'll get you up to speed on the latest in the trade front. That's next. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Delivering Alpha, the most important investor summit 9 years running. Strategy from leading alpha generators. Direct access to policymakers and government leaders. On September 19th, see who's calling the shots now. Go to deliveringalpha.com to attend this year's blockbuster event.
You will come away with ideas that you can put to work immediately.
Plus, special guest Vice President Mike Pence talks economy and trade war impact. Reserve your spot now at deliveringalpha.com.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
If it isn't dead, if it ever comes back, we'll come back to.
On September 6th.
This meeting of the Losers Club has officially begun.
They're back, and so is he.
We didn't stop it.
The clown.
Starring James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain.
For 27 years, I dreamt of you.
See how it all ends.
I craved you.
It, Chapter 2.
I missed you.
In cinemas September 6th. Book tickets now, rated 15.
There are certain things in life we simply don't talk about. And hemorrhoids are, right up there, so to speak. But we should, because there's 8 million people in the UK right now suffering with piles. If you're one of them like I was, you should speak to Xroid. They're the Harley Street specialists in hemorrhoid treatment. It's a new, fast, gentle, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids, with no downtime, and the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Consultation and treatment starts from $9.95. Xroid, be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things.
Dad, I'm bored.
Why don't you go and start your holiday homework?
Don't worry, we've teamed up with Disney to bring you loads of exciting activities to keep the kids entertained this summer without even having to leave London. Make the most of the sunshine. And go play pool games at your local swimming baths, inspired by Disney Pixar's Toy Story 4's Ducky. Yay! Look online for Asda Tour de Fun for even more exciting activity ideas. Go discover your fun side with Asda.
I didn't choose you, you chose me. When you broke from the crowd and pawed at my knee, soon you'll be feeling right at home. You'll be a bit unsure, but you're free to roam. What's good to chew? What's nice to nibble? Wet food, dry food, tin food, kibble? You might sometimes be cheeky, not always wise, but I know I found love in those puppy dog eyes. Join the free VIP Puppy Club from Pets at Home for advice and exclusive offers, including 10% off your first shop in store. Visit petsathome.com/puppy club or join in store. T's and C's apply.
Welcome back. U.S. equity futures at this hour are sharply higher, indicated up triple digits again this morning, 186 points on the Dow after a good session yesterday on Thursday and the day before. The S&P indicated up over 20, NASDAQ indicated up 54. Treasury yields backed up a little bit today, and that probably gives a little bit of strength overall. It's bad when they go down every day and look like they're heading negative, like over in Europe. So today we're, as you can see, there's a little bit of inversion, but basically pretty close. 152 on the 10-year, 153 on the 2-year. Trade is front and center as the latest round of tariffs are set to take effect this weekend, as China's yuan is on track for its biggest monthly fall against the dollar in more than 25 years. Eunice Yoon joins us now with more, and maybe tell us the latest you know about what's happening in Hong Kong and how you see that potentially playing out as well this weekend, Eunice.
Thanks so much, Joe. I think I'll start with the tariffs and then I'll go into Hong Kong. But for the tariffs, we're just 2 days away before those new tariffs kick in. On Sunday, a little bit after midnight, Eastern Standard Time, the U.S.'s tariffs, it's about 15%. It's a 15% tariff. It's going to hit $125 billion worth of Chinese goods. China's going to add an extra 5 to 10% tax to their first tranche of $75 billion worth of goods, U.S. goods, of course, including soybeans. The Foreign Ministry today said that it hoped the U.S. would, quote, show its sincerity with real action, and that's being interpreted as China's way to make another call for the U.S. to end the tariffs. Now, the yuan is also headed for the worst month since 1994. It dropped by 3.7% in the month of August, and there are signs now that the authorities here are getting more nervous about the weakness in the renminbi. There was a report in the Nikkei Japanese newspaper which suggested that banks are being told by regulators to put in some more restrictions for their foreign currency conversions involving the renminbi, and also that real estate developers have been limited their access to foreign currency bonds. Now, separate to that, with the Hong Kong police, they have now confirmed that they have arrested 3 pro-democracy activists. One of them is a man named Joshua Wong, who was known as one of the key organizers for the what was known as the Umbrella Movement back in 2014, which involved mass demonstrations. And state media have been accusing Wong's organization of, quote, ruining Hong Kong, and has been calling Wong the activist who creates chaos in the city. Today here in China, we also saw a lot of news outlets playing more videos of police drills along the border in Hong Kong, sending that message again that Beijing is ready to step in if it needs to. Now, the Hong Kong government has said that they have everything under control. But, of course, this comes right before massive protests were scheduled for this weekend, and the organizers had called off those protests because they weren't able to get the proper permissions yet to have those demonstrations. But they are vowing to continue to fight to try to get more of those permissions in order to get their voices heard. Guys?
You wonder, are they really drills in case something happens, or is it a show of force to send a message? Hopefully it's the latter, I guess, right, Eunice?
Yeah. Well, they're definitely drills, but we don't really know the purpose. You know, like you said, it could just be a show, which is what it looks like, just a way to kind of scare the protesters. But, it's difficult to say because, we're not there as to whether or not they're and know exactly what the government is up to. Now, another story that was actually late breaking, guys, that was pretty interesting and involves kind of the temperature of what's happening with the government is that Beijing expelled a Wall Street Journal reporter. This just happened in the past couple of hours, where all day today we were hearing within the Foreign Press Corps rumors that one of the Wall Street Journal reporters, his name is Chen Han Wong, who is a Singapore national, that he might get kicked out of the country. And it was because he wrote a story about President Xi's cousin and some allegations of gambling as well as potential money laundering in Australia by President Xi's cousin. So the Wall Street Journal had confirmed that the Beijing authorities have not renewed this reporter's press credentials, and those press credentials expire today. So he is leaving, and as you guys could imagine, there are a lot of sensitive topics to talk about in China, but to write about the financial wealth of some of the top leadership, especially President Xi Jinping, is seen as a very taboo topic. So, so he's going to be leaving today.
Cartoon characters. If that gets him mad, I mean, you can only imagine what this would. I just wonder what the tip. If there is a time when they just say, "All right, enough." I'm wondering what would, because it seems like they're able to sort of manage it in half measures right now without really, showing the entire world what they're capable. I don't think they want to do that, right? I wonder if there's and then the protesters are going to keep pushing until. I mean, they seem to want to force their hand, so I don't know how it finally quiets down.
Yeah, no, it's actually gotten tighter, and I mean, as we've been talking about this for a while. There's also a big important event that's coming up, the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic, which is happening on October 1st. Right. So just in the past couple of days, everybody's been starting to complain about the challenges on the internet. This is probably going to continue for the next month. It's very common when we have these major events that are happening in China because the government just wants to clamp down on any potential, pretty much anything that could be seen as disruptive. And one other thing, Joe, that when you were asking me before about the implications of why the government here and the state media would be describing these activists in such negative terms, again, it's a way to try to dismiss them and say that this is a tiny part of the population, because the whole idea that upstanding Chinese citizens who have jobs and are very thoughtful could potentially go against the Communist Party is something that's the Communist Party thinks is unheard of, and they don't want that narrative out there.
All right, great. Thanks, Eunice. And won't see you on Monday, unfortunately. Sorry, but this is on us. It's not on you. But anyway.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, right.
Tuesday we'll see her.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Have a great weekend. All right.
All right, let's talk more about the impact of the U.S.-China trade war on businesses here as well as in China, and bring in David Chor, the Tuck School of Business professor, for the impact on China. And on the impact on the U.S. companies, we bring in Zach Cooper, research fellow at AEI. Gentlemen, great to have you with us. David, I'll start off with you. Eunice had outlined all of the things that the Chinese government is dealing with right now. It's certainly got its hands full, but in terms of the impact from the trade war, what is the most immediate threat in your view to the Chinese economy? Is it the impact specifically of tariffs? Is it currency and potentially losing control of that? What is it in your view?
Well, in my view, I think it's going to be the strain that it's going to cause in the Chinese manufacturing sector. It's probably really feeling pain. At this point, real-time data on how the manufacturing firms are performing, on the labor market situation in the manufacturing sector, that's actually really hard to come by from China on a regular basis. But there's definitely feeling those strains, and definitely there would be concerns that this could spill over. When factory orders evaporate, manufacturing firms have to close down. It's often accompanied by layoffs, or workers being asked to go on wage arrears, essentially being asked to work without pay. And that's not a great situation to have on the ground.
Are there things that the Chinese government can do to offset some of the pain felt in the manufacturing sector? I mean, today there are reports that in Shanghai there could be tax cuts, and that the Chinese government is planning other free trade zones around China. Could that help offset the pain that it's feeling in terms of manufacturing jobs potentially leaving?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Chinese government is going to do whatever it can to try to cushion the blow. The trade war between the U.S. and China, the tit for tat in terms of tariffs, has been grabbing all the headlines. What the Chinese have been doing in the background has actually been to lower the tariffs that they are charging to non-U.S. exporters. So basically, U.S. exports to China have declined. Exports from Canada and Germany to China, those have been going up to step in and fill that void. So they're doing whatever they can to cushion this blow.
Zach, what's your take on the impact on the U.S. economy? A lot of economists out there will say it's this percentage of tariffs on this dollar amount of goods, and that's the impact. But what we've seen so far is that the impact has been also on business spending, on confidence, et cetera, other measures that may not be hard measures in the U.S. economy.
Well, that's right. I think a lot of people have felt that the first $250 billion in tariffs actually hasn't had the effect that they expected. But I think this last $300 billion is going to be much more important. It's going to affect consumers much more directly. And so I think we should expect to see some real concern among the consumers over the next few months. This is why the president's team didn't want to put these tariffs in place before the holidays.
We've heard so many companies, though, already say that consumers won't pay a price increase for the goods. And so isn't it really corporate America that will bear the brunt? And if that's the case, is that less of a blow to the U.S. economy than if the consumers actually paid? Or does it not matter?
That might be right, but I think, look, the president is quite worried about what happens with the stock market. You can see it in just the fact that he announces the tariffs on a Friday night and then backs off of them before Monday morning when the markets opened last week. So I think the president, the White House, they're watching the stock market just as much as they're watching consumer confidence. And so even if it's just companies that bear the brunt, there's still going to be some real blowback here in Washington.
Can the president be the backstop to the economy then?
Well, he's probably the source of a lot of angst, I think, to start with. I mean, at this point, he's pushing and pushing and pushing, and the stock market hasn't broken. I mean, it threatens to break. But that remains the big threat. I mean, I agree that, these tariffs on their own are still pretty small as a percent of the economy. There's the question of what's the direct effect on the economy.
Right.
And this is a tax on the U.S. consumer, but you're talking 2/10% of GDP from the round that comes this weekend. So it's not a devastating blow. But the question is on the indirect side. But, so far it's not been devastating, and the stock market is holding near its high. But obviously we are vulnerable here.
Okay. David and Zach, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, coming up, WeWork's roadshow expected any day now. What appetite will investors have for another major loss maker? We'll dig into the company's numbers next. Go ahead to breakers, a quick check.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
Hemorrhoids. You talk to your GP, but you don't really get anywhere because the NHS has limited surgery for hemorrhoids, so you go on suffering in silence. Okay, maybe not so silent. It's time to speak to Xroid. They specialise in a new, fast, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids with no downtime. And the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Don't be one of the 8 million people in the UK suffering in almost silence. Get back to what you love doing. Xroid. Be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
Live big and spend less on the brands you adore. And dine by the waterside. Who could want more? Lap up the savings as much as the view with Ted Baker, Hackett, Nike and Coach too. Lock Fine and Five Guys make it a date. You can shop, meet and eat every weekday till late. So sit back, unwind and let style lead the way. And give yourself a different day at Gunwharf Quays. Waterfront outlet shopping.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try Click and Collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try Click and Collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings and things.
of strings and things called Strings and Things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things.
From the moment I saw you, the last of the litter, I knew you were the one, and would soon hear the pitter-patter of tiny paws on our kitchen floor, and tiny scratches on the bedroom door. You might sometimes be mischievous, sometimes be shy, but I know I found love in those kitten cat eyes. Join the free VIP Kitten Club from Pets at Home for advice and exclusive offers, including 10% off your first shop in store. Visit petsathome.com/kitten club or join in store. T's and C's.
Anyway, I brought it on myself. More Chicago, more Peter Cetera. Anyway, WeWork's roadshow, thought to be taking place sometime soon. How hard will Adam Newman and his lieutenants have to work to convince investors the company's a good bet? Joining us now to discuss, Kathleen Smith, co-founder and principal of Renaissance Capital, and Peter Eavis, a reporter at the New York Times. We're going to get into some of the specifics, I think, with Peter in a second, Kathleen, but just overall, in terms of what we've seen with some of the hot IPOs that are money losers, this is like another one, isn't it? I mean,
it's a bad sign. We've studied the most money-losing companies that have gone public, the most that have lost money 12 months before they've done their IPOs. WeWork's the second most money-losing IPO after Uber. That list of companies, the 10 most money-losing, have all done very poorly for investors. We look at WeWork and we can call it WeWork, we spend. This is what WeWork is to us. And it's IPO investors are going to be very careful about valuation.
Now,
Uber's
burn me once, right?
Uber's trading 30% below its IPO price, Lyft 25% below. You know, investors who are looking at these are going to know that that can't happen.
But they must understand that. Underwriters and the company itself must understand that they're not going to get a big...
And the latest valuation round is $47 billion. So how are they going to price this when the last private round valued the company at $47 billion? It's hard to figure out that would make any sense.
Do those dismal returns, do they change over a longer period of time as opposed to months after the IPO?
Well, still, if you start at a high value,
it's just harder.
If the company it takes so much time to get to that, they need to price this correctly.
So, Peter, with their business model, I mean, reading your articles, they need to make all their space like Instagram ready, right?
Yeah,
they need plants and exposed bricks and millennial like inducements and things. So that's expensive, right? So that's
expensive. Yeah.
There's a reason they're losing money. I mean, we understand it to build out this business, right? If it's understandable, does that make it okay?
I mean, yes, but it's a question of for how long and whether or not ultimately the returns can be earned on it. So, you know, as a reporter, I mean, I knew this IPO was coming up. I knew there was eventually going to be some sort of document out there showing some of the financials. So before that came out, I spent a lot of time talking to real estate people in New York, particularly people in the business of shared space, as it's called. And, you know, and I kind of got a sense of what I would want to see in this document. And then I looked at it, and some of it's there, to be fair, but like a lot of it isn't. And so that's why I wrote the piece that came out yesterday, which is like, here's a bunch of things that you would really want to see in
Go into some. Like, you want to know where the individual places are, not just an aggregate number.
Yeah, you don't want this big aggregate. What you want is particularly, like, there's a rival group called IWG, and each quarter or each half they put out an earnings statement. It shows you what they're making at the location level on their more mature properties versus their younger ones in Asia versus the US, you know, and it's incredibly useful detail because the older ones show you what the business can make once it's up and running. Right. And that's the big question hanging over WeWork is this all growth related costs, right, or can they actually make money when they're kind of all...
Because you've got 15-year leases and people are only going in for
like a little under 2. Right? Yeah.
So, and you also point out there's no per capita number on how many people are there.
Right.
So if people are waiting at bathrooms or elevators or crowded, can't get a private room to work in, that's...
Yeah, and you have to pay extra for the private rooms often. And, you know, like these are things that can add up and erode the experience that people have in these spaces. They look very nice, but... The question is are they a little too crowded for people to be productive? We don't have any way of gauging that. That's the point.
And we're not even talking about any of the stuff about Mr. Newman in terms of all the
corporate governance,
or how we're doing a slowdown,
and what happens in a slowdown when you've got 15-year leases. All right, somehow we're out of time, Kathleen. I'm sorry, but thank you for telling us to at least be aware of what's going on.
Be aware.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And we also want to thank our guest host for this past hour, Jim O'Sullivan. Thank you so much. Coming up, futures surging on this last trading day of August. We'll talk trade, the Fed, and other big stories moving the markets next. Our guest host for the rest of the show will be Blackstone Chief Investment Strategist Joe Zeidel. So stay tuned to Squawk Box.
The problem with traditional cotton sheets.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't?
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it?
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
If it isn't dead, if it ever comes back, we'll come back to.
On September 6th,
This meeting of the Losers Club has officially begun.
they're back, and so is he.
We didn't stop it. The clown.
Starring James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain.
For 27 years, I dreamt of you.
See how it all ends.
I craved you.
It, Chapter 2.
I missed you.
In cinemas September 6th. Book tickets now, rated 15.
Hemorrhoids. You talk to your GP, but you don't really get anywhere because the NHS has limited surgery for hemorrhoids, so you go on suffering in silence. Okay, maybe not so silent. It's time to speak to Xroid. They specialise in a new, fast, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids with no downtime. And the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Don't be one of the 8 million people in the UK suffering in almost silence. Get back to what you love doing. Xroid. Be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
The new Vauxhall Combo Cargo delivers. For the heavy lifters with its payload of up to a ton. For the fuel savers with its highly efficient engines. And it delivers awards, including International Van of the Year 2019. New Combo Cargo. Carries British business. From 168 a month with 6 years 0% APR. Vauxhall. British brand since 1903. Conditional sale. Minimum 18% deposit plus VAT at 20% on total price. Financed by Vauxhall Finance subject to status. 18 plus. Small business users only. T's and C's apply. Search combo offer.
Your payroll.
Global trade and your money. Futures getting a lift this morning. After some trade discussions yesterday, we'll break down the latest on the trade war straight ahead.
Prepping for Dorian's destruction, a major hurricane is set to hit the east coast of Florida. The latest on the path and the days ahead coming up.
And the Fed's next move, the countdown to the September Fed meeting is on. We preview the possible rate scenarios and discuss the global slowdown. The second hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from the beating heart of business, New York. This is Squawk Box.
Sorry. Good morning and welcome back to Squawk Box. I wish we could. Here on CNBC, I'm Joe Kernan, along with Melissa Lee. Becky and Andrew are off. In studio for the remainder of the show, you just was sidling up to the desk, right, Joe?
Sidling.
Joe's. I like that. What is that, a gerund? I like that verb though. When you sidle. Anyway, Chief Investment Strategist at Blackstone. Welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
You get 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get 2 hours. So we thought about this.
You know, thought make the day before Labor Day weekend a good one for the both of you. So.
You have you
so kind.
You written down some stuff that hasn't been said before by strategists here? I mean, you got some stuff.
I've got some notes. I've been watching all morning long. I was watching all day yesterday. Yeah.
If you say cautiously optimistic, you're leaving the set.
Joe has like a cattle prod.
No, I don't have cautiously
You're not going to
optimistic
say
in there
cautiously
anywhere.
optimistic?
He just
scratched it out.
And he wrote down optimistically cautious. That's not going to work either, Joe. Anyway, U.S. equity futures at this hour are up just under 200 points on the Dow. The S&P is up 21 and change, and the NASDAQ is up 57 points or so.
Here's what's making headlines at this hour. General Electric has won partial dismissal of a shareholder lawsuit. The suit had accused GE of fraudulent accounting in its power business and of concealing $24 billion in insurance liabilities. The judge did give the shareholders permission to amend their complaint. The month of August will conclude with a handful of economic reports. In less than 90 minutes, we will get July figures for personal income and consumer spending. And later this morning, the Chicago Purchasing Managers Index will be out, along with the University of Michigan's final August Consumer Sentiment Index. And yet another retail stock is jumping after an upbeat quarterly earnings report. This time, it's discount retailer Big Lots. The company earned 53 cents a share for its latest quarter, 13 cents above estimates. It also said it was confident it will be able to navigate through tariff-related headwinds. Big Lots did report lower than expected comp store sales. Shares are surging by about 12% right now. And a developing story we will be watching this weekend and into next week. Hurricane Dorian is now expected to become a Category 4 storm with winds reaching 140 miles an hour before it makes landfall on Florida's east coast. President Trump canceled a planned trip to Poland this weekend because of the storm. Dorian is expected to make landfall early next week. Dorian is forcing many of the cruise liners to change routes, including the Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian. Checking on the airlines as well as we head into the busy Labor Day weekend. We had a great day for the airlines in yesterday's session. Right now you see this performance year to date.
And dramatic new developments overnight in Hong Kong as key demonstrations have been canceled and several important figures in the movement have been arrested. NBC's Chris Livesay is on the scene in Hong Kong this morning. What can you tell us, Chris?
That's right. I'm here in Hong Kong, a city that has been shaken by violence. And now authorities are responding to that, canceling a very key protest here expected for tomorrow. Now, this comes in response to escalated conflicts between protesters and the police this past weekend, where we saw protesters hurling Molotov cocktails. Those are gasoline bombs and bricks. In response, we saw the police use a water cannon for the first time. They even fired a warning shot into the air and pointed those weapons at protesters in response. Now, all of this is just unheard of in a city like Hong Kong, which prides itself for stability and for peace. It's also unheard of in China at large, which hasn't seen a challenge to its authority of this nature since 1989. That's when protesters moved on Tiananmen Square, and it's a very ominous distinction considering that those protests ended in bloodshed. However, protesters here, they say they have not been deterred, and they will march regardless. So we are pinning ourselves for a showdown between protesters and police forces. And the big question on everybody's mind is, how will this end? Will it end in peace or otherwise? And will tomorrow's protest be the time in which Beijing decides enough is enough? Back to you.
We were just actually talking about that and wondering how things play out, Chris. Thank you. And we appreciate your reporting over there, and we'll check back if we can. The countdown, meanwhile, is on. Sunday, September 1st is when additional U.S. tariffs hit Chinese imports. For more, let's welcome Tori Whiting, Heritage Foundation trade economist, and Stephen Roach, former Morgan Stanley Asia chairman, now with Yale University. He is the author of Unbalanced, the Codependency of America and China. Tori, Stephen, thanks for joining us. I haven't read it yet, Stephen. I apologize. You haven't sent me a copy, autographed or anything like that. But when you talk about unbalanced, are you conceding that we get the short end of the stick with China, or what's the basic thrust there?
The basic thrust, Joe, and I'm crushed to know that you haven't read the book, but
I need a copy. I can't. You want me? Listen. I'll get a. Is there an audio copy?
Yeah, no, I'll read it to you personally, Joe.
Second prize is you'll do that twice for me. Thanks, Steve. No. So what about unbalanced?
The basic thesis is that we both depend on one another. China certainly depends on the U.S. for its largest external market, for its export-led economy. But we depend on China. It's our third largest and most rapidly growing export market, as President Trump fails to understand. They're a major foreign buyer of U.S. treasuries, and they do provide us with low-cost goods that American consumers apparently need to make ends meet. So the idea that it's a one-way relationship, that we have all the chips and China's hurting, is not really one that's consistent with at least the arguments that I try to make in the book.
The one thing, Stephen, that I've been positing recently is what we might play this song next. What a wonderful world it would be if both countries could see past the current disputes and symbiotically, it should be a really great relationship in the 21st century. It should be one of the greatest. And China has a lot of people that would like to increase their standard of living. And, over here, we've obviously needed a big trading partner. We'd like to satisfy the consumer needs of China. And so it could end up great. But do you concede that China has certain concessions that it needs to make so that we feel not unfairly treated in terms of IP theft and being able to do business on a level playing field? I don't think I've ever gotten you to concede that before.
No, I don't think you have either, Joe. But look, I agree with your wonderful world thesis. I mean, there is tremendous opportunity if both countries were to deal with each other fairly and take advantage of the needs that both have for one another. China, for example, is building a services-led consumer society. It'll be the biggest source of new demand in the world in the 21st century. Shame on us if we don't get a stake of that and convert that into a growth opportunity for us. There's a lot of talk, and I've engaged in a debate on your show before with all three of you over the allegations of intellectual property theft, forced technology transfer, and the point that I've made repeatedly in looking at these charges very carefully is that the evidence that the U.S. and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer has presented to lay out these charges would not stand up in a U.S. court of law. It's flimsy evidence, and it's based on innuendo rather than hard, cold facts.
And you think the currency, where it is, there are parts of the middle of the country, Steve, obviously, that have been decimated. It's not all China's fault, obviously, but, there's some steel dumping. There's got to be something. Anyway, Joe Zeidel.
Stephen, morning, Joe Zeidel. Just a question. Do you think that we're likely to get a resolution to this before the election, before Trump's re-election in 2020?
I don't, Joe. I think there's still a chance that we'll get a deal, but certainly don't count on something before this October the 1st, 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. So there's no imminent deal. China likes long and arduous negotiations, and they're more than prepared to go back to that. But the framework that we had that fell apart is just not it's a non-starter for China.
Let me get Tori in. Sorry, Tori. I know you're at the Heritage Foundation, so I'm afraid to even say, I'm not even going to say the T word to you. I know how you feel about those. So as quickly as we can not use that method to try to change behavior, the better, as far as you're concerned. Tariffs.
That's absolutely correct. Tariffs or taxes, that's kind of our motto these days over at the Heritage Foundation, has been for decades. Really what we're advocating for at the Heritage Foundation is for the president to be addressing our concerns with China, which I think some of them are legitimately pointed out, with more effective means. So Treasury Department sanctioning individuals and companies that violate U.S. intellectual property laws, taking more cases to the World Trade Organization, where we win most of the time and the U.S. government verifies that China changes its behavior. And there's a whole host of other ways that we could be directly addressing our issues with China, including with negotiations, without taxing the American people. And just so you know, in less than 48 hours, the tax burden on American families is going to go up by about $100 per family on Sunday. And that is just unacceptable.
Well, I understand that Heritage hates taxes, so you don't want to tariff. But what sometimes I don't understand, I mean, the left loves taxes, and anything we want to affect socially, there's a tax for that. So this could be a really legitimate long-term sort of a viewpoint to try to bring China. Steve disagrees, but bring China into the real world in terms of fair trade. I don't know why the left can't see maybe that's a good use of tax dollars to try and get a fair playing field for such a huge relationship that we have.
Well, the problem is that it's an ineffective method.
What tax isn't? What tax isn't that the federal government solve something with?
That's usually the case. But in this scenario, I think there's a significant misconception by the Trump administration. They believe that these tariffs are taxes on the Chinese, but that's absolutely not the case. They're taxes on American businesses and American consumers. And then at the same time, American taxpayers are footing the bill for additional subsidies for agricultural producers who are being hurt by lack of market access in China as a result of retaliation. So it's really bad on both sides when, if you wanted to address these issues with China, you could just do it head on and really just get it with a scalpel and get right at the problem.
All right. I don't think we're going to solve it today. They're going on either way, Tori. We'll check back with you, though. I knew what you were going to say. And Stephen Roach, fair and unbalanced. That's not the saying, is it, Stephen? That's it's actually fair and balanced. Is my book in the mail? I mean, do you know what happened?
No, I think you received 3 copies, Joe, but you get so much mail that you never really open.
Goes out to Englewood Cliffs.
The next time I see you in person, I will personally deliver a copy.
I want you to start.
I'll read the conclusion to you. Also.
Okay. All right.
I thought Stephen, you were going to read the whole book to Joe.
He was.
I thought that was the promise. So Joe's really looking forward to
Joe
the
has
audio
a limited
file of that.
attention span.
You've noticed. So you've seen the show.
Once or twice.
I want you to start thinking about what you say. When you write, on the little page where you write something to me, I want you to say, I don't want it to be, some cynical, sarcastic thing either. I want it from your heart, Roach, okay?
It's always from my heart, Joe. Especially to you.
All right, thank you. Tori, Stephen Roach.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Coming up, the New York Yankees teaming up with Amazon and Sinclair to buy Yes from Disney. Details after the break. And take a look at futures. We are looking to close out the month of August with gains across the board. S&P 500 looking to open 20 points higher. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Requesting time off? Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't?
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it?
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
There are certain things in life we simply don't talk about. And hemorrhoids are, right up there, so to speak. But we should, because there's 8 million people in the UK right now suffering with piles. If you're one of them like I was, you should speak to Xroid. They're the Harley Street specialists in hemorrhoid treatment. It's a new, fast, gentle, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids, with no downtime, and the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Consultation and treatment starts from $9.95. Xroid, be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things.
including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Futures right now indicating a higher open across the board. This is, of course, the final trading session of the month of August, and the month of August has been a tough one for stocks. S&P 500 is looking to open up by about 20 points. Dow looking to add 180 at the open. The Nasdaq is looking up by about 54 points. In terms of the sectors that have done the worst in the month of August, get this: energy. Energy has had the worst August since 2011.
That's not great for a global growth check, right? I mean, it'd be nice if, but I saw some other people mentioning that if it was really bad, the growth picture for the globe, that oil would have even performed worse, that it's been kind of in a manageable trade.
Well, there are tensions in the Middle East with Iran, so that's sort of putting a floor underneath right now.
But we're over here just pumping it like, we're the biggest producer around, right? See Aramco? Interesting too. Anyway, as part of its deal to buy Fox, Disney has sold its stake in the Yes Network to an investor group. It includes Amazon and Sinclair. The group acquired the 80% stake of Yes that wasn't already held by the New York Yankees. The stake was valued at about $3.5 billion. All right, coming up, it's been a hot summer for the IPO market, but as the weather cools, will the number of companies coming to the market do the same? We'll discuss that after the break. Squawk Box is coming right back.
Time now for today's Aflac trivia question. In what year was the electric self-starter patented for a car? The answer when CNBC Squawk Box continues.
We think you would really shine in the Aflac.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
Live big and spend less on the brands you adore, and dine by the waterside. Who could want more? Lap up the savings as much as the view with Ted Baker, Hackett, Nike, and Coach too. Lock Fine and Five Guys make it a date. You can shop, meet, and eat every weekday till late. So sit back, unwind, and let style lead the way. And give yourself